Here's your voiceover is coming up now. Your first memory isn't really your first memory. It feels like a beginning, a birthday cake, a scraped knee, your mother's face leaning over a crib. But here's the unsettling truth. That moment probably didn't happen the way you remember it. And everything before it? Gone. Erased, not lost in some dusty archive of your mind waiting to be found. Deleted, on purpose. Most people can't remember anything before the age of 3 or 4. Some can't recall much before 6 or 7. This gap has a name, infantile amnesia. And for over a century, scientists have been trying to figure out why the human brain seems almost designed to forget the very beginning of its own existence. You'd think it would be the opposite. Those first years are extraordinary. You're learning to walk. You're hearing language for the first time and somehow decoding it into words. You're forming your first bonds, feeling your first fear, your first joy. It's arguably the most intense period of learning a human being will ever experience. And yet, almost none of it survives as conscious memory. So what is happening in there? Why does the brain seem to sabotage itself? Let's start with the machinery. Memory isn't stored in one single place in your brain. It's built through a partnership between different regions. And one of the most important is a small seahorse-shaped structure called the hippocampus. Think of the hippocampus as the brain's filing clerk. It doesn't create memories out of nothing. It takes the flood of sensory experience, the sounds, the smells, the emotions, and stitches them into a coherent timeline, then files that timeline away for long-term storage. The problem is, in infancy, that filing clerk hasn't finished training yet. The hippocampus continues developing well into childhood. Neurons are still multiplying, connections are still forming, and, critically, new neurons are being born and inserted into the existing circuitry at a rapid pace. That process is called neurogenesis, and researchers believe it might be one of the biggest culprits behind infantile amnesia. Here's the theory. When a brand new neuron gets wired into the hippocampus, it doesn't just politely join the existing network. It can actually disrupt it. Imagine a library where the shelves are constantly being torn down and rebuilt while new books are being shoved into the stacks. Even if you managed to file a book away yesterday, the reorganization happening today might make it impossible to find again, or it might overwrite the very shelf it was sitting on. Scientists studying this in animal models have found that periods of high neurogenesis correlate with poor long-term memory retention. The brain is quite literally too busy building itself to also be a reliable archive. Researchers have actually tested this idea in the lab in a strikingly direct way. In one set of experiments, scientists trained young animals on a simple memory task, then artificially sped up or slowed down the rate at which new neurons were being born in the hippocampus. When they boosted that neuron growth, the animals forgot faster. When they slowed it down, infants that normally would have forgotten held onto the memory far longer than they should have. The rate of new neurons being wired in wasn't just associated with forgetting. It appeared to be actively driving it. But neurogenesis isn't the whole story. There's a second piece of the puzzle, and it has to do with language. Think about how you remember things now, as an adult. Memory isn't just a video replay. It's a narrative. You remember a vacation not as raw sensory footage, but as a story: we landed, the flight was delayed, my sister lost her passport. We laughed about it for years afterward. That narrative structure requires language. It requires a sense of self as a character who experiences things over time. And here's the catch. Babies and toddlers don't have that yet. They don't yet possess the linguistic scaffolding needed to encode an experience as a story with a beginning, middle, and end. So even if the raw sensory experience is processed and briefly held, there's no narrative structure sturdy enough to file it away for retrieval decades later. This is why psychologists talk about something called the cognitive self. Before a certain age, a child doesn't yet have a stable, continuous sense of me that persists through time in the way an adult does. And autobiographical memory, the kind of memory that lets you say, I remember when I did this, depends on that sense of self existing first. You can't remember your own story if you don't yet understand that you are the main character of one. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting, because infantile amnesia isn't a hard uniform wall. It's not like your brain flips a switch at exactly age 3 and starts recording. The boundary is fuzzy, and it shifts depending on culture. Researchers have found something remarkable. People from cultures that emphasize detailed, elaborative storytelling, parents who sit with children and ask, "And then what happened? How did that make you feel? What did you do next?" tend to have earlier and more detailed childhood memories than people from cultures with a more minimal, fact-based conversational style. In other words, the way adults talk to children about the past seems to help build the very architecture that memory later relies on. Memory, it turns out, isn't just a biological process. It's partly a social one. You are, in a very real sense, taught how to remember. And the differences here are not small. Studies comparing adults across cultures have found that the average age of a person's very first memory can shift by a year or more, depending on how their family and community talked about the past. In one line of research, adults from a culture in New Zealand that places heavy emphasis on detailed, elaborate storytelling reaching far back in time, reported some of the earliest first memories ever documented. The takeaway is almost unsettlingly simple. Talk to a child richly and often about their own experiences, and you may be handing them a longer memory of their own life. This raises a strange and almost poetic point. The memories you do have from early childhood might not even be real in the way you think. Psychologists have run experiments where they show that false memories can be implanted with surprising ease. A vivid, detailed, emotionally convincing memory of an event that simply never happened. If your family retold a story enough times, showed you enough photos, described a moment in enough vivid language, your brain may have quietly constructed a memory from that secondhand information and filed it away as if you had experienced it firsthand. So that hazy image you have of your third birthday party, the balloons, the cake, your grandmother's laugh, there's a real chance you're not remembering the event. You're remembering the retelling of the event. Psychologists have demonstrated this with unsettling ease. In one famous experiment, researchers managed to convince a sizable share of adult volunteers that they had once been lost in a shopping mall as a small child, frightened and crying before a kind stranger returned them to their family. It never happened. But once the false story was suggested and gently reinforced, many participants didn't just accept it. They began adding their own vivid details, describing the stranger's clothing, the panic, the flood of relief. Their brains had manufactured an entire memory out of a suggestion, and it felt every bit as real to them as the true ones. So why would evolution build a system this seemingly flawed? Why erase the earliest, most formative years of a person's life? One leading idea is that it isn't a flaw at all. It's a trade-off. Early childhood is a period of unprecedented brain plasticity. Your neural architecture needs to stay flexible, rapidly rewiring itself as you learn to move, speak, and understand the world. Locking in permanent, detailed autobiographical memories during that chaotic construction phase might actually interfere with the more urgent task at hand, building a functioning brain. It's possible that forgetting isn't a bug in the system. It's the price of rapid learning. You trade episodic memories for raw developmental speed. There's another angle too. Evolutionary psychologists point out that infants don't need autobiographical memory the way adults do. A baby doesn't need to recall the specific Tuesday it learned that fire is hot. It just needs to walk away with the generalized procedural knowledge that fire is dangerous. And that kind of learning, implicit, procedural, emotional, doesn't rely on the hippocampus and its detailed narrative filing system the same way conscious memory does. It turns out infants are actually excellent learners. They're just terrible record keepers. So the forgetting isn't total. Traces remain, just not in the form you'd expect. Implicit memory, the kind that shapes your reflexes, your fears, your comfort with certain sounds or smells, can be laid down far earlier than explicit tell-a-story memory. This is why some psychologists believe early experiences, even ones you can't consciously recall, may still shape your personality, your attachment style, your gut-level reactions to the world for the rest of your life. You don't remember it, but some deeper layer of you was there, and it left a mark anyway. Which brings us back to that hazy, half-real memory you started this video thinking about, the birthday cake, the crib, your mother's face. Maybe it happened exactly like that. Maybe it's a memory stitched together from old photographs and family stories, told and retold until your brain filed it away as your own. Either way, the years before it are not sitting somewhere in your head waiting to be unlocked. They were never filed in the first place. Your brain was too busy building itself, rewiring, growing, learning how to learn, to also keep a diary. So the next time someone insists they can remember being 1 year old, you'll know the real answer. It's not that their memory is exceptional. It's that memory, as we know it, hadn't been born yet. The you that exists today, telling this story to yourself, only came online a little later than you think. And everything before that beginning was written, quietly and deliberately, to disappear.